All right, we're going to go ahead and get started if everybody's ready. We got a few more people that haven't signed on yet, but we will let them jump on while we're doing some introductions. So I just want to say good afternoon to everyone, and thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules to be a part of the webinar series entitled Navigating the Hierarchy of Food Recovery. So this is the first webinar of our series. It's a four-part series, and we'll be focusing on source reduction today. So the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, more specifically the Office of Policy and Sustainable Practices, invites you to join us for the entire series, which will feature 4 distinct webinars focusing on the different management strategies laid out by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, also known as the U.S. EPA, and their food recovery hierarchy. So this webinar is being put on by the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation in collaboration with Urban Green Lab, Clean Memphis, and the University of Arkansas. So, my name, see if you guys can see me. My name is Caleb Powell, and I am an environmental scientist with the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation and the Office of Policy and Sustainable Practices. I will be hosting the webinar today for our wonderful speakers. We've got some great speakers that are going to give us so much information on source reduction and some great programs that they have going on around the state and actually out of the state in Arkansas as well. So I just wanted to go ahead and give a little hey to everybody. I won't curse you guys with looking at my face for the entire webinar. So everyone is muted upon entry to reduce the amount of background noise. But if you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask those in the chat box, and I'll work on asking those to our presenters. I'm going ahead right now and sending a chat to everyone so that you can see where that is. Feel free to send that directly to me if you don't want everyone to be able to see your question or comment, and I can ask that, and not tell who it's from if you're worried about that. Or in that little drop down, you can choose who it gets sent to. So if you want it to go to all the panelists, all the participants, or just myself, just do the host, and that will get that sent, and we'll get on working those, or we'll work on getting those questions answered, or if you have any troubles or technical issues with sound or anything, just let me know, and I'll try to troubleshoot that for you. Also, there is a little hand emoji you see at the bottom of the participants, and if you hit that little emoji, it will put a hand by your name, and I can unmute you if you would like to actually ask your questions in person. So feel free to do any of those, whatever makes you most comfortable. So to give an overview of what's going to be covered today, this is part 1 of the 4-part series. Like I said, it's on source reduction, and is going to be focused on food waste reduction in communities, schools, and businesses through the use of education, policy intervention, and other strategies. The Office of Policy and Sustainable Practices will be joined by, or are joined by, local and regional experts from Urban Green Lab in Nashville, Clean Memphis in Memphis, and the University of Arkansas. So our presenters have a wealth of knowledge and experience that will help us better understand the challenges and solutions to food waste and source reduction in that regard. So first, I would like to introduce the mind behind this series and our wonderful Get Food Smart TN program. That is Ashley Cabrera. She is a creative services consultant with our office, the Office of Policy and Sustainable Practices. Her responsibilities include overseeing the office's social media pages, newsletter, and website, as well as co-hosting the State of Sustainability podcast. I'll do a shameless plug. That's our podcast. If anybody wants to hear Ashley and I talk about sustainability initiatives around the state, give us a follow. It's the State of Sustainability. I can't help but doing a shameless plug for that. She also manages the Get Food Smart TN program. She received a Bachelor of Science degree in Political Science and minor in Journalism from Austin Peay University, and she is passionate about sustainability in Tennessee and reducing food waste. So, Ashley?
Thank you, Caleb, for the introduction, and yes, shameless plug for our podcast. Please listen in. We do 1 podcast a month, and it's lots of fun, and we have a lot of great guests. Can y'all hear me okay? Am I good, Caleb?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to give a quick overview of Get Food Smart TN in case there are some of you that are unfamiliar with it. So we formally launched in April 2018. And since then, we have, done some changes and also added various components. So now the program has 3 components, which is our education and outreach, our recognition program, which we have 190 participants in that, and then technical assistance, which we actually launched at the beginning of this year. And thanks to COVID, we haven't been able to do much with that, but we're hoping to ramp that up hopefully at the beginning of next year. But we offer lots of technical assistance opportunities, whether it's a school or a business or even citywide. We do that for free. So we are actually also working through legislation, partnerships, granting programs, and such to help reduce food waste throughout the state. Like Caleb mentioned, we are going to be having 3 other parts to this 4-part series. Our next webinar will be December 10th, and that will be on recovery. And then we will skip January, let everyone recoup after the holidays. And then our 3rd part will be on diversion in February. And then in March, we will do other food waste strategies such as policy and actually some technological solutions to food waste that I'm really excited to show everyone. So, give it back to you, Caleb.
Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, Ashley is the mind behind this series, and so super happy to help out with this, and just really thankful for having her and her mind collaborating with all of this. So thanks, Ashley. So just to give you a rundown on our presenters today, we have Deanna Andrews. She's from Urban Green Lab. We have Melissa Terry from the University of Arkansas, and we have Janet Oscarino. I think I said that right. Sorry if I didn't, from Queen Memphis. So we will jump right into it. Our first speaker is going to be Deanna Andrew. She serves as the Assistant Director of Programs, managing the implementation and evaluation of all programs at Urban Green Lab to support the mission of teaching communities how to live sustainably. She has degrees in environmental science and sustainable practice with a focus in food systems, and also helps direct the Nashville Food Waste Initiative, which highlights best practices in reducing food waste. So I actually know Deanna, and she's a good friend of mine, doing great things in Nashville. So without further ado, I will pass it over to you. I think you're muted.
Oh, am I back? There we go. Okay, thank you again. Thanks, Caleb and Ashley, for inviting me to present today. I'm really excited to be here along with Melissa and Janet. We already work really well together, so it's nice to see them here as well. So I'll be presenting today on just the background of the food waste issue and some strategies for waste reduction, including prevention, of course, as that's today's topic. And I'll let you know about who Urban Green Lab is, as well as the Nashville Food Waste Initiative. So again, Caleb gave a great introduction of me, but I do have a background in environmental science and sustainable practices, and I'm a Nashville native, and I've worked at Urban Green Lab for 3 years. And Urban Green Lab's mission is to teach communities how to live sustainably, and we do that by organizing professionals into green teams, training them on sustainable living education, and then connecting them to the resources they need to make sustainable living choices and to make that change in their community. And we do that in 4 different programs, including training and workshops similar to these, where we train professionals, including teachers and nonprofit and company professionals. We also have a Students in Sustainability program where we place high school juniors and seniors on those green teams of companies and nonprofits where they're helping to solve a sustainability challenge. Our Nashville Sustainability Roundtable brings together professionals in Nashville to exchange best practices and learn even more about sustainable living. And our Lab Recognition program goes even deeper, where we provide more coaching to an organization to help them create a green team, create a sustainability strategic plan, and really bring that sustainable living education and practice into their workplace. And so I'll give a little bit of a background on food waste in general. And this is a very simplified version of our food waste system. This shows like a circular system of food waste, and it is very linear, but we know that waste occurs throughout the entire system. And so here is a more detailed version of the diagram, and it includes environmental, social, and economic components. And these are the three pillars of sustainability: people, profit, and planet. And all three of these things need to be considered for a healthy and just food system. So food waste, as we know, occurs throughout the entire system, and there's great potential for preventing that food waste, rescuing, and recycling it throughout. So first I'll ask, what percentage of food waste is wasted in the United States? How much waste are we really talking about here? So if you think about the whole system, imagine how much food is wasted. And the answer is up to 40% of food is wasted in our food system in America. And that would be like going to the grocery store, having 5 bags of groceries and just leaving 2 in the parking lot. And no one would ever really do that on purpose, right? And so while 40% of food is wasted, about 1 in 6 or 1 in 7 Tennesseans are food insecure, meaning they're not sure where their next meal is coming from. And we don't yet have a firm number of how that's being impacted due to COVID. A lot of people are struggling right now, but there are some reports that about 1 in 4 households are experiencing food insecurity. And just a third of what the food that is thrown out could actually be enough to feed all of the food insecure Americans. These are some metrics to show you how wasting food wastes all other resources in our system. So all of the resources that go into creating food end up getting wasted when you throw food away. So you can see that the amount of food we waste translates to 19% of all of our U.S. croplands, as well as 18% of farming fertilizer, 21% of our agricultural water use, and amounts to $218 billion of waste. And this information is coming from the Natural Resources Defense Council. I'd like to take a quick pause to ask Ashley a question. Sorry, I sent some updated slides. Would that be possible to use today? Should I take a break or just keep going?
Caleb, go ahead.
I haven't seen any questions come in so far, so I think just keep rocking on.
Okay. I have my updated slides didn't seem to make it in here. I guess I'll just keep going.
Okay. Yeah. I
okay.
thought I got the ones that you sent in to download, but I guess I didn't.
Okay. No problem. I'll just keep going. No problem. So I'll might give a little bit of updates on these slides. No problem. I'll just let everyone know the difference. So here's some more information on individual waste levels. So we have a lot of data in Nashville from a study by the NRDC, and it shows that we actually waste about 3.5 pounds of wasted food per week, which is a little bit less than this shows. And that amount adds up to $1,800 per year for a family. So a family wastes about $1,800 worth of food each year, and that is a large amount for some families, right? And so the next slide we're going to see is that amount, that shows that in our landfill, a large amount of that organic waste ends up in our landfill. So only a small amount ends up being composted. So this graph shows from the Nashville Solid Waste Master Plan that in our residential landfills in Nashville, they are about 32% organics, which includes food waste and other yard waste. And so this amount of waste is completely avoidable. We should be able to prevent it from entering the landfill to begin with, but also be able to divert it to our neighbors that need it. And as we all know, when food and organics end up in our landfill and break down without oxygen, they end up producing a lot more greenhouse gas emissions and a lot more methane. And so diverting that food not only helps our neighbors, but also helps us mitigate climate change. So another interesting statistic coming from that study of our food waste is that a large portion of what we waste are inedible things like banana peels, but also fruits and vegetable waste and prepared food like leftovers. So some quick tips on how to reduce that are to, plan to use those fruits and vegetable scraps, try to find recipes where you can use the whole fruit and vegetable, and then try to freeze your leftovers or use them up. And what I found interesting from the study also is that of the total food waste by type for edible and inedible, these are the types of food that we waste the most. So coffee, including coffee grounds, banana, eggs, chicken, eggs. I just found that interesting. So maybe think about in your own practice and in your own life what types of food you're wasting. But luckily, now to celebrate, the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the EPA have a goal to reduce food waste by 50% by 2030. So, and that goal was set in 2015. So in the next 10 years, they're hoping to reduce our food waste by half. And additionally, TDEC has the 2025 Solid Waste Plan, and Nashville has passed a zero waste goal of 2050 this last year. So all of these goals and plans and initiatives will help us collectively reduce our food waste in Tennessee together. And so what we use for guidance on how to reduce our food waste is this food recovery hierarchy by the EPA, and you've heard that before, and you'll explore this throughout the next few webinars as well. But today we're looking at the most preferred option, which is source reduction, prevention. That is the most important piece for us. So we want to identify strategies that help us prevent food waste. And you can see that 10 million tons of food goes unharvested each year, which is pretty incredible. And about 20% of fruits and vegetables are unharvested or not used because they're simply the wrong size. They're too small or too big. And so I just wanted to note that here, that this is one place where some food is going to waste on the farm, but it also goes to waste in processing and at the grocery and in our own home. And so as you go down the hierarchy, you can see that the next preferred strategies are to feed hungry people through donation, send scraps to animal feed, and then towards the bottom half we see industrial use, composting, and landfilling as our very last options. So of course we always want to start with prevention. It is the most preferred strategy for reducing food waste. This is another simplified version of this hierarchy by ReFed, and it helps us focus on prevention, rescue, and recycling. So now I'll tell you a little bit about the Nashville Food Waste Initiative and what we do. So we are a part of Urban Green Lab, is our food waste initiative. It started in 2015 as a pilot with the Natural Resources Defense Council and the Environmental Law Institute. And it was to study and research food waste in Nashville along with other cities to see what was going on in our food system and how we could close those gaps to reduce our food waste. So our goal is to engage governments, consumers, restaurants, community institutions, and retailers to prevent food waste, rescue surplus food, and compost and digest what's left to help us build healthy soil. And this is a partnership, as I said, between these three organizations. And this year, Urban Green Lab took over leadership of that initiative, but we still partner with NRDC and ELI to do all of our work. So I'll give you an overview of what we do here in Nashville and how we're hoping to spread this information throughout the state and also the country. So we have a multifaceted approach for how we work on food waste in Nashville, including policy development, education and outreach, research, and capacity building. And firstly, I'll say for policy development, Todd and Linda, so Linda Bregan with the Environmental Law Institute and Todd Lawrence, our director at Urban Green Lab, have both served as co-chairs on multiple committees to start reducing food waste in the city or continue that work. And they served on the Livable Nashville Committee. They were co-chair of Waste Reduction and Recycling Subcommittee, and they recommended food waste reduction targets and initiatives. That was a few years ago. And now Todd serves as co-chair, or Linda Bregan, I'm sorry, serves as co-chair for the Mayor's Office on its Climate Action Plan that will address food waste reduction with respect to mitigation and resilience. And our director, Todd, also serves on the Waste Subcommittee of our Sustainability Advisory Committee. So this is the first time Nashville's had this type of committee and is really putting forth this Climate Action Plan, which is really progressive for our state. And of course, the Nashville Solid Waste Master Plan I mentioned before, the Food Waste Initiative also had leadership on that task force as well to create these goals. We also run the Mayor's Food Saver Challenge. So that is a challenge that started in 2017 as a 30-day challenge for restaurants to commit to adopting 5 food-saving practices, including prevention, like planning, ensuring that they're not producing too much, ensuring they have to-go containers, those types of practices, and even more, weighing their waste, definitely. And so they commit to doing those food waste practices, and we were able to follow up with them to see what was accomplished. And then in November of 2018, the challenge was relaunched on a continuing basis. So it's still continuing. COVID has been really challenging, but we're still trying to support our 35 participating organizations. And you can see our partners below here on this slide as well. We couldn't do it without participation from Metro Public Works, the Nashville Originals, and the National Restaurant Association. So education and outreach is a huge part of what we do, and this is very relevant to this conversation. So mainly we like to point to the Save the Food materials. That's a campaign from the NRDC, and it really helps to educate everyone on food waste issues like we're doing today, and then how to prevent that food from being wasted. So you may have seen some of these billboards around town. We actually have 10 current billboards around the Nashville area. And it's just to give information on food waste and make it more of a common topic for people to be seeing and talking about. So Save the Food is an incredible resource. I suggest that you visit that website, especially during the holidays. So they have an incredible tool called the Guestimator, and it helps you plan for parties, helps you plan for big meals so that you're not producing too much food and having too many leftovers. So that's a really nice tool to use, especially during Thanksgiving. Also, they have a meal prep mate, which helps you create meal plans and shopping lists. And these are the things that we believe are most impactful as an individual to be able to reduce your food waste on the front end. Also, preparation and storage, so making sure that you're storing your food correctly in your home and understanding what types of food need to be stored in which ways. And then using scraps in cooking, like I mentioned before, as well as freezing and preserving. So freezing is my favorite tool, but I also need to remind myself to, quote unquote, mine my freezer. So make sure I go through my freezer and actually use that food. Also, sell-by dates and date labels on food are an important thing to understand. So date labels indicate quality and not food safety. So these are not federally regulated except for baby food and formula. So other than baby food and formula, all these dates that you see on our food, our sell-by and best before dates, these are all for the company to explain to you when they think the food will be its best quality. So they want to ensure that, they can give you a guaranteed date of good quality, but it doesn't necessarily mean that food has spoiled or is unsafe to eat. So what we suggest is using your eyes, nose, and common sense to make sure that food is good before you throw it away. Additionally, for education and outreach, we also provide resources and workshops to educate potential food donors about liability protection and to enhance the federal tax deduction. So there's so many opportunities for food donation, but often organizations might be nervous, they might be scared about what could happen if there was a problem, or they just don't want to be liable for anything, as well as understanding how to package that food and understanding cooling practices and getting it in the hands of people who need it in time. So we've created these educational flyers, this guidance that we try to provide to large organizations that can increase their food donation, and an important part of that is understanding the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Food Act. This is a very important piece of legislation all the way back in 1996 that federally protects anyone from any sort of liability from donating food. So any organization that donates food in good faith to a nonprofit organization in order to feed people cannot be held liable. So that's a really helpful piece of legislation to share if any organization is worried about donating food to their community. No one has ever been sued for donating food. Additionally, we hosted the Waste Not Cooking competition with James Beard Foundation. So I believe this was over a year and a half now, maybe 2 years, and we were able to host this cooking competition with famous chefs in town, and they had to use food scraps to repurpose them to create appetizers. And if anyone saw that, it was a really fun activity, and after COVID, we're definitely going to host it again. But this just helps, it's a fun way to help everybody understand that you can use almost every part of fruits and vegetables to be able to make edible food. With trainings and workshops, again, this is part of Urban Green Lab programming, and we provide training, workshops, and strategic planning for schools, nonprofits, and businesses on food waste reduction and sustainable practices overall. This is an image of some of our teachers being trained a couple of years ago. So we include not only education for them, but lessons for them to take back to their classroom to learn about food waste and how to prevent it, and also how to be able to donate or compost food if needed. More specifically, we've trained about 215 teachers in 90 schools. We're really proud of that, and received the Salute to Excellence Award last year for our teacher training. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. The Environmental Law Institute has conducted a ton of incredible research on this food waste issue and how to prevent food waste and identify barriers and opportunities, as well as they are developing a toolkit to implement food waste related actions in our climate action plan. So just like Nashville's creating our climate action plan, how do other cities incorporate food waste prevention in their climate action plan? As we know, it's a very important part, as food waste can contribute to climate change. So one of the pieces of research they've completed is the Nashville Food Rescue Landscape Analysis. In addition to that, the NRDC also conducted a study and produced a model for potential to increase food rescue. So I realize we're talking about prevention today, but just wanted to give you some hope that there's a ton of potential for food rescue in Nashville and other cities in Tennessee, and that if we just were able to implement the strategies proposed in this plan with our retail grocery, our healthcare, and our hospitality, we would be able to close about half of our meal gap, which would be incredible. We would save 5,500 tons of food. And that we have some incredible partners in food rescue happening in Nashville and around the state, and all of these are represented on our steering committee as well for the Nashville Food Waste Initiative. Lastly, I'll share our capacity building projects. So the Nashville Food Waste Initiative works to build capacity for food waste prevention and rescue. We facilitated donation partnerships among these high-volume surplus food generators and hunger relief nonprofits, so including the Bridgestone Arena where the Preds play, the Country Music Hall of Fame, and Ascend Amphitheater. We were able to facilitate those relationships so they can get food donated. Also, our team coordinated an effort with TSU, Vanderbilt, and Belmont to pilot the use of LeanPath food waste reduction software so they can measure the food being wasted in their cafeterias. And an app with the Feeding America Meal Connect app with Second Harvest Food Bank to get that food to those hunger relief agencies that need it. Lastly, we also serve now as the hub for the regional, Southeast Regional Hub for the Food Matters Project within our DC. And we regularly consult with leaders all over the state. We work with Memphis, so Janet, who's on the call, and some other cities around our region so that we can help exchange best practices. So that is Urban Green Lab and the Nashville Food Waste Initiative. Thank you again for having me, and please try to keep up with our work on our website and on our socials, and contact me if you have any questions.
Thank you so much. I haven't seen any questions coming in yet. If you have any questions for Deanna, send those our way, and I will get those, make sure to see sees those and answers those. Next, let's see here. Let me get back. Oh, sorry about that. All right. All right, next we have Melissa Terry. Melissa Terry is a food policy researcher at the University of Arkansas. She specializes in food conservation research and education in the National School Lunch Program. So, without further ado, I will pass it right over to you, Melissa.
Well, hi, everybody. I just want to do a little sound check. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am. Awesome.
All right. Well, I'm going to turn my video off so we can just focus on the slides. So also my house is messy, so there's that. The background in this field of research is obviously grounded in the National School Lunch Program, which currently over 100,000 public schools and some private schools participate in, and approximately 29.6 million students are served daily in this program. And so when we talk about source reduction and food conservation education, it's really, I feel like, important to frame the conversation in the context of education, and by which I mean that when students come into the cafeteria to get their lunch, they're having an educational experience as well as their lunch, whether it's latent or intentional. And so if we work towards a framework where cafeterias are classrooms and are considered classrooms with instructional times, then we can really facilitate closed-loop food system education in the National School Lunch Program, which includes conservation education, resource education, et cetera. Let's see. So do I advance the slides, or do you, Caleb?
Yes, ma'am. Just right up where it's in the top left corner where it says 41, the right arrow should make it where it goes.
All right.
Perfect.
Okay, so I am based out of the University of Arkansas, although my research with the USDA and the EPA, and then further on with the World Wildlife Fund is national in scope. But I wanted to just kind of start at the anchor of where my research began and why it's relevant to public health, as well as the environmental and conservation aspects. So when we talk about food scarcity, childhood hunger, etc., and food insecurity, there's this pervasive myth that there's a food scarcity issue, and that is true only to the extent, based on the data available, that it's just we have plenty of food, it's just not distributed equitably, and or our systems just need a little bit of tweaking to help advance the diversity, equity, and inclusion factors, which includes the amount of time kids actually get to sit in their seat and eat their lunch, et cetera. So anyway, I just wanted to point out this Feeding America Map the Gap that includes all states. And so if you have any questions about your state, whether it's Tennessee or any other state in the country, then you can go here and find out lots of interesting information that can be foundational for any of your policy goals and or discussions with state or national legislators. This has already been covered, the food waste prevention. Today's topic, our focus is source reduction, so we'll just keep going in that. One of the things that we do in the scope of research with students in the National School Lunch Program is to, again, thinking about the cafeteria as a classroom, is to set up an opportunity for students to engage in measuring and participating in some STEM and sometimes STEAM-based activities, one of which is a student food waste audit, and that means that they can set up a day where they measure, or multiple days to measure what's being consumed and what's not being consumed, and whether those are shareable resources left on the tray and or potentially compostable or animal scraps. So this was a handy little guide set up by the National Academy of Medicine. Just wanted to include that for y'all. So this is my school, where I was a school food and school garden coordinator at Washington Elementary in Fayetteville, Arkansas for 6 years, and this was the beta version of our National Student Food Waste Audit Guide. We had, the reason I include these slides is because I want you to just kind of understand that it can seem really intimidating to do a student food waste audit, but it's really not. It's very low tech, as you can see from, we've got 5-gallon buckets and just labels. The main thing is to have full staff support before you begin and to have a great committee. And so this is our school principal. We have a representative from the EPA, our assistant principal, the cafeteria director, our math and science district coordinator, and our county environmental and conservation program coordinator. So our students were hands-on and involved in all of this. They collected the data. The bottom left-hand picture shows where students are collecting the data and charting it, which will eventually turn into an opportunity to teach them how to make graphs and charts, etc. One of the things that I like about the picture on the top left corner is that it shows that field science is a process of adaptation as you set up natural experiments. And so in our very first audit, excuse me, we just had a bucket just for liquids, and then as soon as the first group came through, we realized that we needed to separate the fluid milk waste out of the other liquid waste so that we could get a better handle on what kind of volume that we were talking about. And that became an increasingly important research metric as we went forward. So these are some of the unused items, unconsumed items that typically go in the trash unless there's a share table or some other way in which that students have an opportunity to put the uneaten apples in their backpacks for later, or as I'll get into a little further into the slide deck, source reduction for these milk cartons is a huge opportunity to reduce fluid milk waste, which has a very high carbon and methane footprint, as well as the packaging waste. by converting to bulk milk dispensers and using cups instead of cartons. So as I was saying earlier, we use these student food waste audits as an opportunity to talk about how to use the actual process as a learning opportunity, but the outcome as well. And so on the upper left-hand corner, this is an audit that we did in Gwinnett County, Georgia, and this is one of our representatives from the USDA's Farm to School program that came and participated, and then she just jumped right in on the line and got hands-on. The milk crate in the middle, as we were going through the audit, these were the unopened and uneaten items, and then after the audit was complete, our student researchers, we lined them all up and created real-time bar graphs with the actual items, and then we drew the bar graphs on the whiteboard, and then the students made their own poster boards that they put into the hallway. So the opportunity for a classroom-based experience as a project and product of the National School Lunch Program and the lunchtime experience has a multitude of multiplier effects for student engagement. So share tables, a lot of people are unsure about what are the rules for share tables. This is a memo from the USDA and the Food and Nutrition Services that recognizes that share tables are allowed in the National School Lunch Program, and depending on your state, there may or may not be additional qualifiers to that. So depending on what state you're in, you may want to check with your child nutrition unit at the state level just to verify if there are any other qualifying requirements. But this is the baseline enabling, not legislation, but memo that permits any school participating in the National School Lunch Program to have a share table in their cafeteria. So milk waste, I talked about that earlier in the slide where you could see the unopened milk cartons that typically go in the trash unless there is a system in place to collect those and prevent them from going in the trash. However, the best way to reduce milk waste is through source reduction and to educate students from taking milk that they do not want. Milk is optional, it's not mandatory. There is a lot of confusion about this, but milk is not required as an item in the National School Lunch Program meal plan. Milk waste is easy to reduce by simply offering a reusable, washable 8-ounce cup for students to fill at a bulk milk dispenser, or if they don't care for milk, at the water fountain, because if the other indication is that if students are wasting a lot of milk, they're actually leaving the lunchroom insufficiently hydrated. And so we want students to not just be well fed, but well hydrated. This picture on the right was one of 4 bags of just milk cartons from one lunch audit at the same Gwinnett County school. And so when you think about those little plastic cups that were in a couple of slides ago in the dishwashing tray, then those are fairly inexpensive, reusable, and prevent all of this packaging waste from going into the trash. Additionally, bulk milk dispensers use less energy than milk carton coolers, and so there's an energy source reduction component as well. It may have been a minute since many of you have been in the school cafeteria, but typically what happens is that there's a milk cooler that's open and students walk by and pick out their milk carton if they want a milk on their way to through the lunch line. However, with an open milk cooler like that, it's competing with the ambient air the entire time that it's open, and so the milk is not as cold. That refrigerated energy is just wasted, and that's completely preventable. Refrigeration is one of the top climate change, prevention strategies, and Project Drawdown, which I encourage y'all to all check out if you are not familiar with that. And we also find that there's a significant reduction in fluid milk waste with the bulk milk dispensers because the research shows that the product is colder, it's fresher, and the students can see what's in their cup, and so they take what they want and then they finish it before they take their trays up. Back to just the general level of how does the USDA approach how schools can address source reduction strategies in the National School Lunch Program. Excuse me. This is a link provided by the Office of the Chief Economist that goes into a couple of different strategies. One of the things that I will say is that in regards to the extending the lunch periods from 20 to 30 minutes, a lot of times that is a difficult ask for districts to achieve because there are requirements for the number of instructional minutes that students must have during the school day. And so an added benefit of thinking about the cafeteria as classroom and including it as instructional time is that it actually creates an enabling framework for an increased amount of minutes in the lunchroom if it's considered instruction time, because then it doesn't take away from the district's compliance factors with state and federal guidelines. What are some barriers to food conservation in the K-12 environment? Well, there's confusion regarding mandatory milk, which I just discussed, but here's the primary link to that. There's confusion regarding reservicing unopened milks, fruits, and packaged items. And this gets back to share tables and other source reduction components. There's also confusion regarding the impact of behavioral economics on choice. And what we mean by that is that the way that the order of operations and the way that the lunch line is set up and or how different products are offered. So if there's a salad bar or, again, the bulk milk dispenser as well. And then there's confusion about the recognition that the school cafeteria is a learning environment. So regardless of whether you go on to be you know, a stay-at-home parent, a brain surgeon, a whatever your vocation is, as an adult, you're going to need healthy food practices and a baseline understanding of nutrition education. And so this is a huge opportunity to reframe what is kind of considered, just based on my experience inside of the school, as an obligation to just get the kids in and get out, and instead to really formalize it as an actual classroom so that there are learning outcomes that are framed up, measured, and transferred to the students. What are some tools for food recovery donations? Deanna kind of went into that, but there's a legal guide to food recovery that a couple of my colleagues at the University of Arkansas School of Law and the Food Law Program created a legal guide to what that means. There's federal enhanced tax deductions. For example, we have a partnership with Whole Foods in our community, and they're able to, through a measurement process, take a tax deduction for food that their surplus food that is donated to our program. USDA Office of Chief Economist has lots of resources. The EPA Food Recovery Challenge has tons of resources, and then the USDA's Access to Healthy Foods documents as well. Additional resources, the guide, How Do You Do It? A Guide to Conducting Student Food Waste Audits. This is a publication that I co-authored with colleagues from the USDA and the EPA, and this is a step-by-step this set of instructions with some background information about how do you set it up, what are some best practices, etc. And the link is below the image. And then for the past 3 years, I have been working with the World Wildlife Fund and have the honor and the pleasure of working with Deanna and her crew, specifically in Tennessee and with Matt and TDEC, to just really get into getting some baseline data on what does it look like at the national level? What are some baseline estimates of how much food is wasted, how much waste could be prevented at the source, and how much could be captured in the environment of the cafeteria as a classroom format. So these links that are below the Food Waste Warriors image here, our research was published about this time last year, actually, and there are 2 components to that. And one is the actual food waste, the reduction research results, and there's case studies for each of the 9 cities that were involved. There are some policy recommendations for legislators, policy recommendations for school districts, and then as well, this top link is the business case. And so what we mean by the business case is that if it is the case that, as we have found in our preliminary research, that there are significant dollars going in the trash, well, if we consider the procurement muscle, if you will, of the purchasing power inside of each of these school districts and the USDA, we can really create some closed-loop food systems and regional circularity for farm-to-school programs, and then also capture those dollars that are currently going into the trash for additional program amenities like equipment purchases, education materials for the students, school gardens, etc. So that's a whole lot of information, and hopefully if you're interested, you can reach out to me if you want directly and or follow along. I use Twitter to just kind of keep a running bulletin board of food policy nerd stuff and answer any questions. I will say also that if your school district or your state is interested in promoting a conversion to bulk milk dispensers over milk cartons, the USDA actually has an open and active equipment grant program, and the estimate to convert, if your school doesn't have a dishwasher, like a sanitizer Hobart, or your school doesn't have a bulk milk dispenser, like the whole estimate for the whole package, from the reusable trays, reusable cups, reusable silverware, the bulk milk dispenser, and the Hobart, is about $7,500. And so there are equipment grants that are available from the USDA to finance that, and it's my hope and understanding that those equipment grants will actually be supplemented and increased in the next fiscal year. So I'm happy to provide anybody additional information about that or technical support if you're interested in doing that. And that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for all that you do, all the research that you do, and for giving this great information to us. I was unaware how much of a change there would be for the bulk milk dispensers. My mom actually works at used to work at a middle school, and she would come home talking about how she was so sad about how many of the unopened milk cartons were thrown away, and fruits and stuff like that. So, you know, I'd never really thought about that until you just said that, but yeah, I bet that actually decreases the amount of waste tremendously. So I'm glad to know that they're doing grants for that, and I hope that more people will take advantage of that to try to reduce the amount of food waste. So thanks for everything that you're doing, and And I don't have any questions yet. I think Deanna said, thanks, Melissa. During our audits, Nashville students decreased their per student plate waste by 32% just by participating in the audits. They ate and drank more. So, yeah, I've been able to actually be a part of a couple of the audits, just sort of being a helper. And it's really eye-opening. You know, a lot of kids don't realize that throwing something away, what it actually means, and that it's just being wasted. So doing these school food waste audits, it really opens their eyes and sort of gives them that ownership, and I think it's very, very important. So thanks for all that you do. Next,
you bet.
We have Janet Boscarino. She is the founder and executive director of Clean Memphis, an environmental education nonprofit in Memphis. She started Clean Memphis in 2008 after spending 20 years in business development and traveling to other cities and beautiful places. Her desire was to create a space where everyone could engage in creating a greener and more vibrant place to live, work, and play. Clean Memphis hosts over 100 community improvement projects annually, fostering connections between communities, school, faith-based groups, and the business community. Clean Memphis is now convening local and regional stakeholders to reduce food waste by 30% in 5 years. So without further ado, I will pass it on over to you, Janet.
Thank you. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate Caleb and Ashley, you guys having me here. It's great to be here with Melissa and Deanna too, learning from you guys. We've been working on waste issues for some time now, but food waste is sort of a new space for us in the past, I would say 18 months to 2 years. So it's been great working in the regional cohort with NRDC and with Nashville to learn from peer cities. And so anyway, I'm happy to be with you guys today, and I'll run through some of the stuff that we're working on here in Memphis. I'm going to shut my camera off too because my office is getting ready for a couple of projects this weekend, and I have no idea what you might see running around behind me. So I'll shut it off so you can focus on slides. Okay, so we are running our actual local project, the programmatic piece for the work that we're doing here in Memphis is called the Memphis Food Waste Project. But we're working with our partner Memphis Transformed and Kroger to launch the campaign version, which will be sort of our call to action, which is 901 Save the Food. And that's using and relying on a lot of the work we're doing with NRDC and a lot of the assets that they already have produced and created around their Save the Food campaign. So how we started really talking about this work here in Memphis is that we know in Memphis and Shelby County we're producing about 1.7 million tons of waste annually. And so looking at this, we understand some of that is sort of a leakage into litter, polluting our water systems. And we have campaigns related to that, but we're also looking at each part of the waste stream to figure out strategies to have waste reduction in each one of those categories. We're really kind of pulling that down to an individual level as well, so that each person in Memphis and Shelby County can sort of feel the weight, if you will, of what they're producing in waste, so that we can begin to unpack that a little bit and look at waste reduction strategies, and food being one of those. So, you know, these are not all new numbers. I think if you talk to any of us, we're all going to have some of the same information about food waste, knowing that 40% of the food goes uneaten, 20% going into landfills, and then we have some of our stats basically connecting it locally to Shelby County. We have a higher amount of poverty here in Shelby County, and so our numbers, even now, I think in COVID, are really 1 in 4 in Shelby County residents are food insecure. So clearly, we're interested in addressing this issue for environmental, social, and economic reasons, and COVID has exacerbated that. You know, and the need for us to get busy working on this initiative. So one of our partnerships with NRDC, and this is the work that they do with any city that they're working with, is to do an estimated food waste calculator by sector. So this is something we did back in 2019, and they were able to produce some baseline results for us. They're not exact, but they give you a good starting place so that you can evaluate sort of where you're losing food and then develop some strategies to target that. So Memphis, just like most cities, you see that you're losing most of it in the residential sector. So that is prime for us doing our 901 Save the Food campaign so that we can reach out to Memphians and in Shelby County to help provide information around waste reduction and diversion strategies there. We've also done a good bit of work in the restaurant space, hospitality space. We have one of our programs within Clean Memphis is our restaurant certification program. It's a sustainability certification called Project Green Fork, and we have about 55 restaurants in that certification process now, or program now, and part of the steps to become Project Green Fork certified is to have a food waste reduction strategy and to be composted. So our partnership with NRDC sort of looks, what we're really looking at from them is technical support. They have a lot of research that they've already done, baseline calculators. They have more toolkits that I think they have a toolkit to help you with their toolkits. They have so much information, and they have a fantastic communications toolkit so that there are graphics, there are all kinds of messaging for billboards, just about every channel that you can imagine. They have done work in that space so that we're able to use that for our 901 Save the Food campaign and just contextualize that a bit here to Memphis and start rolling with that, which we'll be doing starting in December. I think it already covered that part too. So like other cities, we're using sort of their strategy about how to reduce food through rethinking, where our partnership, we're leading the local food waste initiative, but we're doing that in partnership with our Office of Sustainability and with our Division of Solid Waste with the City of Memphis. So right away, the mayor has a proclamation that instead of really reducing food waste by 30%, we're aligning with the national and EPA goal to reduce food waste by 50% by 2030. Part of the work we're doing on the Rethink strategy here is also to work with the city facilities and look at waste reduction strategies there wherever they have food services. And doing some baseline measurement. We're doing some educational outreach to city and county government employees. Many of them have not been in the office, obviously, during COVID, so we're starting with doing some messaging and encouraging a at-home food waste audit with different city and county government employees to sort of bring awareness so that when we bring them or when they begin to come back into the office, they will have a little bit of baseline knowledge and be more inclined to get on with new policies related to food waste reduction and diversion measures inside city and county facilities. And that's just sort of part of that idea of the city. If the mayor is coming out to make a proclamation about reducing food waste, and they want to make sure that we're looking at, their facilities are also looking at waste reduction strategies and leading by example. We've already started some of that work with our convention center, with FedEx Forum, where our MBA team and other events occur, our zoo, different places like that are already committing to food waste reduction strategies, connecting with donation partners, and also composting. So these are the guiding principles that are leading the work that we're doing here locally in Memphis. So again, the slide just talks about what our goal is for the overall campaign and the work that we're doing. So a little bit of what we've done so far. Like I said, I think Gianna and Melissa have talked a lot about the different strategies. I think we have a lot of shared information about that, about reducing food waste. But here's some of the things in Memphis that we've worked on. We have pulled together a task force with the above partners and others. We found we have a pretty robust food rescue group going on in Memphis, but they're working a little bit in silos and lack some cohesive and connectivity. So we're working more building out the ecosystem around food donation here. We have a partnership between the health department and the restaurant association. They provided education around food donation. I'm not sure, I think it was Gianna that talked a little bit about how restaurants sometimes or any donors have some concern about liability issues. And so we're doing a lot of educational outreach, not only for our Project Green Fork restaurants, but in partnership with the health department. We really see them as an advocate to be out as they are visiting restaurants and promoting the idea of food donation. We're also working with the local restaurant association on software like LeanPath and other solutions like Gooder to work with local restaurants on reducing food waste as well. Of course, COVID has presented an interesting time for us in restaurant work. I'm sure that we're not alone, and many of our restaurants just struggling to survive this time, but we're still working with them on ways that they can have waste reduction to help the bottom line as well. We've also had work to have a creation of a map of food recovery programs and feeding programs that with our partner Innovate Memphis, so that we can do a better job of matching food recovery groups with feeding programs in Memphis and Shelby County. I loved listening to Melissa talk about her school audits, because we did a fair amount of that. We did audits at we did in-class programming and then did audits at the individual school level. I think the interesting thing, of course, the bulk milk issue, we had, I think in a 4 or 5 day time period in one school during the audit process, we had maybe 450 unopened milks, and then additional just tons of milk that you know, when we were collecting that as the wasted milk as well. We were able to set up share tables through that process, and I think the other really important thing that came out of the food waste audits at schools is that our nutrition services department, they were really supportive and were on site during the audits. It was very student-led, where they did the surveys to find out why students were eating things. And they found they have never based their ordering on food waste. They've always based their ordering and what they're providing on based on what students take. But because they were now receiving a different or an additional piece of data about what was being thrown away, they could make changes to, you know, we're throwing away tons of rolls, but the rolls were sort of dry and no one liked them. They were throwing them all away. And so it gave them an interesting additional piece of data that they were able to use to help shape their menus a little better. And it also revealed to them the amount or the need for training regarding to the offer versus, you know, having the students take milk, and a variety of other things. I know several days that students didn't eat something and they could tell that it wasn't prepared properly. So they could go back and do some retraining with their staff and teachers to help prevent food waste as well. We had just gotten started on doing those last fall and had 4 different schools scheduled for this spring before COVID hit. So we hope to pick that back up when they're back in school. We're still doing virtual learning here in Memphis. One other outcome of that, too, is that we were able to connect to build an ecosystem between each one of Shelby. We have 191 schools in Shelby County that are in the public school system, and we've been working to connect each one of those schools to a donation partner, so that any leftover foods that they have, of course, they can't reserve that or serve that to students the next day. So we've been able to connect them with a donation partner in the surrounding community so that they could donate leftover trays of green beans, whatever that may be, to a feeding program in the community. So we've been excited about that. Like Nashville, we've been doing some work with the Meal Connect program so that you can connect surplus food to other feeding programs. We had some success with that earlier on this year with some of our hotels that were having events and then connecting through Meal Connect to feeding programs. We are doing a pretty robust pilot with composting here in Memphis, and so we have a connection to the Compost Ferry, which is our local subscription service composting. We also have some drop-off locations, but we were made some connections with them to the Shelby County Schools main kitchen so that they were doing a composting pilot at the district level as well. We have started a hospitality focus. Again, started this at the beginning of this year, and we've pulled back a little bit due to COVID, but we're working on a greening downtown strategy that's really focusing on our restaurant and hospitality industry with our partners, Memphis Tourism. And the idea there is that we're working with event spaces, all of our hotels and restaurants downtown to sort of become Project Greenport certified in the sense that they're all have a food reduction plan in place, they have a food donation plan in place, and they're all composting and using compostable to-go materials. So we'll be really focusing on growing that over the next several years. We really were excited to take off with that, but due to COVID and, of course, the hospitality industry being sort of cut back right now. That's a little bit of less of a focus right now. Our local universities are doing a lot related to food waste. They've changed a lot of internal policies, the way they've been ordering food, and each of our 3 main universities in town are now set up with food donation and also set up with compost. So one of the things I wanted to leave you guys with too is just talk about a couple of things that we've done that were fun. We did a reharvest festival last year. It was really fun. Essentially something similar to what Deanna was talking about with chefs in Nashville. We worked with Kroger and some local farmers, and we had celebrity chefs, and we did an event where they had to use food scraps to create yummy food. And so we did that, and we also had one of our local breweries, Memphis Made Brewing, make a beer from reclaimed bagels. And so we had an outdoor festival. All of our events are zero waste events, and we use that as an education opportunity as well, so that we can talk to people at these events, not only about food waste, but about waste in general, about reducing our impacts on the environment through waste reduction and diversion. And so these are just some pictures of the festival that we had. And one of our chefs who made this delicious, I think this was his family's bolognese recipe, and he had used butternut squash that had been rescued and something else. But anyway, it was a really fun day. We're going to really, we planned on having it in 2020, which we're not, of course, but we are hoping that by next fall in 2021, we can have a much larger version of this festival here in Memphis. And then we are rolling out, like I said, later this fall, December, we're rolling out our 901 Save the Food campaign in partnership with Memphis Transforms. We'll start with social media mainly, but we are doing a billboard and bus wrap campaign. We have interest in doing posters and pushing out food sort of tips about waste reduction that we'll push out through social media messaging. We also, on our web, have information about how to reduce your food waste at home. And part of our partnership with we have 3 full-time teachers on staff that do environmental education in schools, and we've been doing virtual learning this year. And with one of our school partners, we're working on an at-home food waste challenge. Just as you guys had mentioned earlier, that just by taking the challenge and becoming more aware, you can reduce food waste significantly. We have now 700 families registered to do at-home food waste audits, and we're really excited to get that rolling and to get the data collection on that so that we can sort of get more information that can help us shape messaging and more information for the city at large. But that is really kind of what we have going on here in Memphis. Again, excited to be here, and I think now that leaves us some time to maybe have questions if other people have questions.
Janet, thank you so much for that presentation. And I wanted to point out in the chat box, our speakers have been putting some links for some websites that they were talking about. So make sure you check the chat box to see those links and be able to go visit those and use those resources. I have one question. I don't know who would like to take a stab at it. It is, it says, let me see it real quick. It says, when planning out a food waste audit, how do you get assistance from teachers or adults? Because the kids are always, and my assumption is that, you know, the kids are always going to be down to do something new and fun like that, but it's really important to have enough adults. And so I guess this question is just basically asking, you know, how do you talk the teachers or the principal into allowing you to do that? I don't know who wants to go for that.
I'm sure Melissa has a ton of information on that, so she's probably the best. But I will say we did a professional development with the principal and all of the teachers before we rolled out the food waste audit, so they had their own level of literacy and excitement about it. And then we also had the director of nutrition services One of our board members is on the board for the Shelby County Schools as well, so we built some institutional sort of interest in it, and I think that's been really helpful on our end to have the audience or the ear of the school district, and also making it a STEM project also made it interesting for the teachers, sort of a project-based learning. So that would be my 2 cents, Melissa. I'm sure you have a lot more information you could share.
Well, basically, I think I would just piggyback on what you just said, and that the advanced planning is critical. Having your sort of administrative staff and nutrition team not just buy-in, but enthusiasm for what can take place in the context of as it's tied to national curriculum benchmark standards. There's all kinds of different runways into science, technology, engineering, math, and art, especially in the context of poster sessions. One of the schools that I had some photos of from Gwinnett County, the student team, after the professional development session prior to the audit, which is critical, and I found also that really framing the student food waste audits in the context of student learning is very important, because sometimes nutrition directors and or school administrators can perceive initially that this might be taken as some kind of criticism of their program, or that they're wasting federal dollars or whatever. And so it's really important to frame it in the context of what happens in the front of the house, using a little bit of restaurant lingo. This is not about any kind of back of the house kitchen practices, although there are some things that can happen in that domain, but that's a whole other conversation. What we're really talking about is measuring student behavior, student learning, and student, ultimately, conservation practices. Because when we use the terms food waste is actually the metric, but it's not our destination narrative. The destination narrative is conservation. And so, like, for example, with the milk cartons, to Caleb's point, with his mom seeing all these milk cartons and uneaten items go in the trash, like, well, that's ridiculous. Like, nobody wants to see that, but what are the rules? How do we prevent that? And so there's a conservation piece there, but then there's also the embedded energy, the embedded resources involved in each one of those items that goes into the trash. So a carton of milk, you've got a refrigeration component that's wasted. You've got the actual paper fiber in the milk carton is one of the highest quality paper fibers available. And there's a huge amount of energy behind just getting those fibers into the milk carton. They're really long strands. They're really, that's a whole other life cycle analysis. But preventing those resources from going into the trash is also a huge conservation metric. And then just the actual fluid milk, the energy that goes into, the feed, the dairy operations, the refrigeration, the transportation, and et cetera, and then for it to arrive in the cafeteria and just end up in the trash is not just wasteful, but it's a huge environmental expense that is typically not accounted for in the full cost accounting of what it costs per carton of milk to a school district. But collectively, from an environmental perspective and to sustainable development goals, that fluid milk, when it goes into the landfill, there's methane production from food waste decomposition in general, but milk especially. So ultimately, it comes down to, just the order of operations is to meet with your district leaders. One of the things that I found really helpful in setting up our audit was to engage our district level math and science curriculum coordinator, and once she was on board and had helped tie in some of the national benchmark standards, then our administrators were totally on board, and then the nutrition staff once they were really comfortable that we were in no way, shape, form, or fashion criticizing their program, we were in fact looking at how to leverage the amount of effort and care they put into producing these school lunches to higher yield, and the sort of maximum utility function of that time and energy was really important. And then, like was mentioned earlier, the kids just really get into it and they love it. And one of the ways that we had a control district, the Boulder School District, and one of the ways that they captured the savings from avoided disposal costs was that they were able to use those avoided disposal cost dollars to increase procurement of local farm to school products, and then they also purchased some lean path software that helped provide like some point-in-time data that really informed the actual budget numbers behind it. One of the schools in Arizona, another case study, they found that just by doing the audit and transitioning away from the milk cartons, they were able to reduce the number of times that the dumpster was pulled from 5 days a week to 2 days a week, and that ended up saving the school district almost $100,000 for one school year. So like the financial impact is huge, and the potential to reallocate those dollars into further procurement practices that support local farmers and support equipment purchases is a really big opportunity.
Awesome, and I'll second the information about the fiber. My dad actually runs a fiber recycling plant here in Nashville, and so yeah, there's a lot that goes into, especially food grade fiber. So you know, there's more than just the milk that's wasted whenever those cartons are thrown away full of milk. We have one more question, and I don't know who wants to talk about this, but it's how what are the first steps in doing a food waste audit at home? So I'm sure it's similar to, it's probably a little bit easier than doing it at a school because you know it's your waste, but I don't know who wants to try to answer that.
I'll add something. So at Urban Green Lab, we have these home investigations on our website, and they were actually written for our middle school curriculum, but anyone can do them. So if you visit our website, you can do them, and we have it's sort of like an audit, a little home investigation list for each of the topics around sustainability, including energy, water, but there's one for food. And we tried to make it really simple for students if they're thinking about their meals throughout the day, just how much they are wasting on their own plate. And we've really simplified it, you know, super basic thinking, you know, just how much do I finish in my own plate? Like if I, you know, serve up my plate and I'm thinking about the end and I don't finish it, how much did I waste in just my own serving? So that's a really simplified way of doing it just in your own day-to-day. You could keep a little bit of a log, and you could maybe estimate a fourth of my plate or a cup of waste. You could kind of think about how you want to measure it. But that's a really kind of basic level one. But as adults, if we're cooking, we really want to think about the pieces that we're wasting in terms of vegetable scraps, fruit scraps. What I mentioned earlier is that that's a huge portion of the amount of food that we waste at home. So maybe during a few days you could meal plan, you know, make a plan and buy your ingredients, and just as you're cooking, try to measure and actually have a scale and think about any of the waste that is either edible or inedible that you are not finishing, and just making a little log and keeping track of it. And then there are some calculators available. I think maybe Melissa mentioned one, but you can measure how much food you ended up throwing away in pounds, and you can convert that to dollars wasted as well as water and energy wasted as well. So that's really interesting to do that. And so I don't know of a specific plug and play tool, maybe the other speakers do, but you could just keep a simple log over a few days while you're cooking.
Yeah, and I think another good tip that I need to really work on is not going to the grocery store while you're hungry. I did that the last time, and I've noticed that I have a lot of snacks and, you know, just an abundance of food that I'm going to have to really work on cooking before it spoils. So that's just a good tip that I might add just from personal experience. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any questions right now. If you do have any questions, make sure to send those our way, and we will work on getting those answered for you. I'd like to go ahead and thank our speakers for taking time to inform us on this important topic. I'd also like to thank everyone that registered and was a part of the webinar audience. We couldn't have webinars if we didn't have the audience. I do want everyone to know that this is being recorded, and the recording and the slides will be available in a follow-up email next week. I want to also give a big shout out to our office intern, Tessa Bells. She has helped out tremendously with putting this series together and like revamping the Get Food Smart TN program and website. So huge shout out to her. She's in here somewhere, I think. So thanks, Tessa, for all that you do. Also, as you can see on the screen, Ashley mentioned this a little bit at the beginning. This is a 4-part series, so these are going to be the dates for our next webinars. It gives you a little bit of time to prepare, and we really hope that you would learn a lot from this and would like to learn about recovery, diversion, and some other waste strategies. So be on the lookout for those. If you were registered for this and you attended this, then you will get the email for the registration link. Also, in the chat box, there's a lot of good resources that are coming in and links from our speakers, so make sure you check those out, maybe copy and paste them onto a Word document or something so you have those. And I'll probably actually put those in the follow-up email that comes next week as well. So we hope that you learned a lot today, and we hope that you're very excited to help combat food waste. If you have any questions, feel free. Here's the contact page for Ashley and for our boss, Matt. Also, you can contact me as well. My name is Caleb Powell, so my email is caleb, CALEB.POWELL@tn.gov. Feel free to shoot me an email if you have any questions about this, or if you aren't receiving any emails about the follow-ups or anything like that, just let me know. With that being said, thanks everyone for being a part of this, and have a great rest of the week and a great weekend.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you setting all this up, and I hope everybody has a great afternoon.
Thanks everyone. Great to be with you.